I remember her, not in fireworks or thunderclaps, but in the still, sacred moments, where silence holds more truth than sound. She never needed to announce herself. She arrived like a breeze, soft, unnoticed at first, but unforgettable once felt. There was a rhythm to the way she moved, as if she was always dancing to a music only she could hear, a quiet waltz between purpose and grace, between strength and softness, that made the world seem less chaotic. Every time she passed through it, she would sit by the window, on rainy afternoons, cup of tea in hand, her gaze lost in thought. Not of herself, I think, but of others, of lives she wanted to touch, of wounds she longed to heal. There was a kindness in her that ran deep, not the kind that seeks recognition, but the kind that gives. Without ever asking, she remembered little details, how I took my coffee, what songs made me quiet, what words I struggled to say. She remembered when others forgot, and in doing so, she taught me what it truly meant to be seen. I remember the way she spoke, her voice never too loud, but always just right, the kind of tone that made you lean in, not because you couldn't hear, but because you didn't want to miss a single word. She had this way of turning simple sentences into sacred verses, each word held with care, as if it mattered, because to her, it did. She never rushed, she never demanded, she simply existed, in a way that made you want to be better. Not to impress her, but to deserve the peace she carried, the light she gave away, so effortlessly. I remember the way she would look at the stars, not with the awe of someone wishing, but with the calm of someone who knew she belonged to them. And maybe she did, maybe the stars whispered her name before they ever learned mine. I remember the days she was quiet, not sad, not withdrawn, just full of thoughts too big for this world to hold. She'd stare at her hands sometimes, like they were tools meant to fix something, but didn't know what yet. And I wanted to tell her, you've already fixed more than you know. Just by being here. She never knew the effect she had. How a simple smile from her could undo the weight of an entire week. How a passing word could stay with me for days. How her presence felt like sunlight spilling through the cracks of a home I didn't know was broken. I remember the pain too, the slow ache of distance, the knowing that I could never truly tell her everything she meant to me. That words, though my craft, felt like stones compared to the cathedral she had built inside my heart. She never asked me to love her. She never needed to. She simply lived, and in doing so, taught me how to feel again. Taught me that love is not always loud and certain. Sometimes it's quiet and patient, a steady hand held out, in a world that often forgets how to be kind. And so, I remember her in every quiet moment. In the hush before dawn, in the lull between heartbeats, in the spaces between words, where truth tends to hide. I remember her not as someone who left, but as someone who stayed. In the corners of my soul, in the soft echoes of memory, in the way I now notice the gentle things. And perhaps, even if she never knows, even if she never returns, I will keep her there. Not as a ghost, not as a regret, but as a sacred, breathing part of who I became, because I once knew a girl like her.